All right. Good evening and welcome to Health Professions Week. My name is Dr. Cameron Matthews. I'm a family physician based out of Washington, D.C., and I've been involved with Health Professions Week since 2016. I absolutely love this series of events that we're able to bring to students across the country every year. I really think that this is an opportunity for us who are in the health professions to motivate you and to hopefully just give you a little bit of insights about what we do every day and why it's important for you to join our fields. I run an organization called the Tour for Diversity in Medicine. We've been touring the country for the last 10 years. We've been to about 27 states, and the goal is to take doctors like myself to undergraduate campuses, high schools around the country, and just really let them see us, because we believe you can't be what you can't see. And that's really critical, particularly when we're talking about our students from Black and Brown communities, like those of us on the screen today. We really want to share our experiences in the health professions because it's critical that we get more of us that look like us into healthcare, into all types of healthcare. And it's even more critical that you hear about our experiences so you know that it's actually worth it, that yes, you can do this as well too. So hopefully you'll get that message tonight. I am joined by an amazing set of students with amazing diversity of professions. I mean, yes, there's beautiful faces on this screen, but we absolutely have a great diversity of experiences and opportunities, and I hope you'll get to learn about each of their professions tonight and hopefully make a decision about one of them yourselves. So I'm going to let them introduce themselves and tell a little bit about why they chose their field, and then we'll get into a great discussion tonight. So I'm going to start with Azaria McClendon.
Hi, everyone. My name is Azaria McClendon. I am originally from a very small town in North Louisiana, but I'm currently a third-year podiatry student at Barry University School of Pediatric Medicine. So I chose podiatry mainly because of how diverse the field of podiatry is within itself. There are multiple subspecialties. For instance, I'm very interested in wound care as well as podopediatrics, but there's also dermatology, radiology, vascular disease, surgery. There's so many different things you can do in the field. And I also love the fact that we can treat most of our patients' illnesses or ailments as soon as they walk into the door, and they can leave with relief.
I love that. I love that. Leave with relief. That's what we're talking about. Making sure our patients feel good when they walk out the door. I love it. All right. Next, let's go to Crystal Salcido.
Hello, everyone. So I was born and raised in Indio, California, and I'm currently in year 4 out of 5 at Bastyr University San Diego campus, working on getting my ND and counseling degree. And yeah, just really interested in mind-body medicine and just treating the whole person.
Perfect. Perfect. And our next student, Michelle Emile. Am I pronouncing that right? I'm sorry, Michelle.
Yeah, it's Michelle Emile. I'm a 4th-year naturopathic student at the college. The Sonoran University. We just changed our name like maybe a month or 2 ago, so excuse me. And I'm interested in acupuncture and botanical medicine, and hopefully a little bit of minor surgery, but we'll see.
Oh, I love it. Oh, I need to talk to you about my acupuncture because I hope I'm getting it the right way. I love it. Thank you, Michelle. All right, next, Luis Marin.
Hi guys, can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Hi guys, my name is Luis Marin. I was born in Cuba, moved to Miami when I was 11, where I did most of my school there. I went to Florida International University for my undergraduate work. There I joined a pre-health club. I always knew that I wanted to go into the health field. I always thought of becoming a physician or a dentist. My mom always wanted to become a dentist, but anyways, the pre-health club in undergrad really helped me narrow down what I wanted. And now I'm a pharmacy student in my 3rd year. There's actually a lot of misconception about what pharmacy. It's, you only think of Walgreens or street pharmacists, but there's actually a variety of things that you can do within the pharmacy field, and especially hospital clinical pharmacy is something that's taking a big toll now and requiring higher education, going into residency. So that's something that hopefully you guys might be interested in. Thank you.
Perfect. Thank you. Claudia Betancourt.
Hi, everyone. I was born and raised in Cuba, and I came to the United States in 2013. I did my undergrad in Miami-Dade College, and I moved in 2020 to Wisconsin, and I am actually a pharmacy student, third-year pharmacy student at Concordia University, Wisconsin. One of the reasons why I went for pharmacy is because it is a very diverse career. You can have many job settings. You can work in a retail pharmacy, you can work in a hospital, you can have your own practice for ambulatory cares and things like that. But also you have a huge impact on industry and drug and research development. And that's hopefully one of the paths that I want to seek after graduating from pharmacy school.
Perfect. Perfect. Thank you. Isaiah Sampson.
Hey everybody, my name is Isaiah. I'm from like Tacoma, Washington area, but I've lived all over the place, like South Carolina, Washington, Hawaii, Tennessee, all over the place. Currently a fourth-year dental student at UCLA School of Dentistry. Dentistry is really cool to me because there's so many different things that you could do within it. Like within each specialty, there's so many ways to tailor the experience to how you want to work yourself and then how you want to have an impact on patients. So it's really cool for that. And my future goal is to become an orthodontist. And so match day is in 13 days, and so we'll see how that goes.
Oh, it's going to be a great day for you. I believe it. I believe it. Great. Congrats. And Cynthia Sharma.
Hello, I am a first-year medical student at NORDA College of Osteopathic Medicine. It's a new DO school here in Utah, and that's where I'm from. I'm from Salt Lake City, Utah, and I grew up here mostly for the most part. But yeah, just kind of in my like third month, so I'm really new into a professional school.
I love it. I love it. Well, Cynthia, let me start with you actually, because you're just getting started, and then I'd love to open this up to any student. But Cynthia, I'm just gonna pick on you a little bit. Why do you think, or have you even had an experience yet? It might be a little early. Why is it important for you as a young South Asian woman to be in health professions? Like what are you going to be able to bring to your patients that maybe someone else can't?
I am, so my dad is South Asian Indian and my mom is Native American, so kind of half and half there. And I think it's important because, I mean, for me growing up, I look up to, and I'm more comfortable talking to people who look like me. And I can get intimidated really easily growing up and talking to people. And so, but if I have somebody who looks like me and who's a woman, then I feel more comfortable. And I think that's important for me to be in that position for somebody else.
Completely. Makes sense. I get more comfortable, right, with someone that I can connect with, right? What about any others? Why do you think it's important that please go ahead, Claudia?
Yeah, in my case, since my Spanish is my first language, that's been something that I have opened the doors to talk differently to the patients. I have many patients approaching to us where we have doing the rotations because they want someone to speak Spanish. They feel more comfortable to open up to you. Sometimes they have this language barrier where they cannot communicate with the pharmacist in the specific area where they are. And I have found that that very important, and to establish that communication and that trust between the provider and the patients. And I think that's something that is great that I can bring on to my career. Yeah.
Exactly. Any other thoughts?
So
I just
it was in.
Sorry. Oh, I will get to all I love it. Go ahead.
Go ahead.
No, sorry. Go ahead.
I just wanted to echo what Claudia said, and then just like, and with that comes like a higher quality of care that I think a lot of communities, minority communities don't receive in healthcare. And so, yeah, go ahead.
So it was important for me because, like I said, in podiatry, you literally see a range of patients from pediatrics to geriatrics, but we deal with a lot of diabetics, and diabetes is really, really prevalent in the minority community. So I felt like it literally behooved me to help Black and brown people understand, like why they're developing these ulcers or why their diabetes is the reason why they have vascular disease. And, just basically try to help treat them, try to help get them take their medications,
Exactly. Michelle, did you have something there?
Yeah, I mean, a lot of times we see a lot of people of color starting to develop a distrust with certain positions if they don't see ones that look like them. Especially nowadays, we're seeing a lot of misinformation being added on, and we're hearing more about racial disparities. And I think it's really important as a Black person of Haitian American descent to be able to communicate and talk to patients more authentically and also give them the care that they deserve, especially since a lot of our field doesn't necessarily always center people of color, but I know that I actively want to center people of color in my work. And I think that's very important. And I'm also somebody who has done advocacy for the LGBT community. And I think that's also important too, when it comes to working with trans health and working with queer people and making sure that they're being safe and knowing that there are options for them out there too, as far as physicians.
Thank you for that, Michelle. Thank you for that. I couldn't agree more. In my own practice, and I hope, I don't know if you guys have experienced this yet. I know I felt like kind of the warmness in my heart the first time I felt it, but when a patient saw me come into the room and just said, thank you. Like, it was just the most amazing feeling, because I mean, you can tell there's so much behind that thank you, right? That they know that I'm going to be able to connect with them in a different way. They know that I'm probably going to listen to them differently. And that is based out of my own experiences. It's not something I learned from a textbook, right? It's because I'm from their community and I can understand. So I hope you all just get that joy if you haven't already. All right, so let's flip the script. Isaiah, unless you want to add something, and Louis, I don't want to leave our gentlemen out.
They all stated everything pretty
We
beautifully,
got it.
so I can.
Good.
Yeah, I think so too. I think the only it's just like all health professionals are leaders within our community. So I think setting an example, it's something that it's important for everyone to know that you can get to this level, you can do it just like we did. And I think just setting that example is very important.
Beautifully said. Beautifully said. So let's flip the script, right? We discussed the importance of having people like us as a member of the care team, right? Leading the care team. Louis, thank you for saying that, of providing that representation, right? But it wasn't always easy for us to get here, right? It might have been actually a more difficult path for a lot of us, because we have a set of experiences that unfortunately can set us back as compared to some of our colleagues, right? What kind of experiences, I don't want to turn too negative, but I do want to be very honest in this conversation for students out there. What kind of experiences might you have had that maybe made you question this was the right path for you? And in relation, maybe not just your race or ethnicity, but any part of your identity, were you ever caused to feel and question that you were on the right path? Did that ever happen to any of you?
So I
love seeing the nose, but go ahead.
So I come from a very medically underserved community. Like I said, it's a very small town. We have one stoplight in the whole town.
That's all.
So there's a clinic, and it's open Monday through Friday, and I believe it's from like 9 to 4 or something like that. But the nearest hospital is maybe about 35 minutes. So if you need emergency care, it's really difficult to access. So that was another one of the biggest reasons why I wanted to go into medicine. But moving from a small town to an even smaller town to go to college, again, it was very medically underserved. The nearest hospital was maybe about 20 minutes. And I remember we had different doctors come in and speak to us. No one from podiatry came to speak to us. I kind of like stumbled upon this field. But there were different doctors that came to speak to us. And whenever I was studying for the MCAT, I remember going to my advisor and telling her how much I was struggling to study for the MCAT, like having to sit down for 8 or 9 hours a day to, focus for that long. And having to grasp all the concepts that they were going to test me on. And she looked me in my face and verbatim told me, maybe this is not the right path for you. You should probably choose something easier. And I don't know, I think that gave me even more drive. It literally like lit a fire under me. And here we are now. And even today, because podiatry, they require you to do a 3-year surgical residency after you finish the 4 years of podiatry school. And a lot of residency programs will not accept women in the event that we get pregnant. And a lot
That's
of
kind of illegal.
they don't tell you, but you know,
Yeah.
If you look at who their residents are, you see that for the last 3 years, all 9 residents that they've taken have been males. And a lot of them won't even grant you an interview, you know, if you're a woman with children, again, because they have to give you maternity leave for 2 months. And that's 2 months that they lose a resident. So that kind of made me question whether I was in the right field, but it also like gives me the drive to try to change the narrative.
Thank you. I love that. Please go ahead, Claudia.
Yeah, for me it wasn't something that I received from someone else. It was from myself, my own insecurities, because when I came to the United States, I still have this language barrier. When I went to pharmacy school, I was like, I thought of myself of not being capable of performing as the other students that were native from here. And I think that was one of the huge steps that I have to obstacles that I have to overcome when I started pharmacy school. And the point that I want to make is like, we have to believe ourselves capable of doing it. And no matter what are your barriers, you just have to keep going and keep trusting that that's the path that you choose for your life and you're going to be capable of doing it.
Exactly. You have to believe in yourself. I think the one thing that I consistently remind students of, and all you poor things are just in the middle of it, but this is a marathon, right? Not a sprint. Like there's not going to be a quick end in sight, right? We're holding on for a career, for a profession, and we need to stay motivated. And it sounds like you guys are. That's amazing. Any other negative experiences or just please go ahead, Cynthia.
Yeah, I grew up in a very like non-diverse community, and even growing up, my own family, you know, I'm grew up in a white family, you know, and so growing up, I had to really learn to believe in myself and like look to myself. So but also even in my classes, I noticed like other voices would be more strong than mine or stronger than my voice. And I had to really speak up and get involved and put myself out there, I would say more so. And I had to be like, I don't know, I feel like there were lots of other voices that were stronger and like people that didn't look like me. And it was just really difficult to overcome that part of it.
Mm-hmm. It can be, it definitely can be. Isaiah.
Yeah, I think one of the things for me, not necessarily on the path getting into dental school, but those initial stages of dental school, that first and second year, I noticed a pattern where we would be having a whole bunch of case-based discussions, and repeatedly I would say the answer, repeatedly there would be silence, and then someone else would raise their hand, say the exact same answer, and they would be accredited, whatever the points are for that. And it would happen on a pretty consistent basis, and start to really question whether what you're bringing to the table is valued. And not necessarily if you have any intrinsic value as a provider, but whether things that you're inputting are going to be taken with any sort of value. And so for that, it was very, very difficult to kind of wrap my mind around that, especially being within such an intense environment, let alone like without any of those external stimuli. So that was something that didn't necessarily make me think that I'd have the most value within this profession. But then growing as a human, growing as a provider, and being able to know that you don't have to know, I don't have to spend all of my time knowing every single part of the book to be able to have every chance of answering every question, to give myself grace in that, and give myself grace in that I'll be able to have an effect bigger than what those case-based discussions are. And that there's much more than the didactic and the clinical aspects of the field. And so that was one of the things that within, I didn't expect to have to go through that beginning of dental school, but it's definitely character development's been the theme.
I love it. I love it. That is so true. All right. All right. So then let's turn to maybe some kind of like fundamental pieces of the transition, right? So you've had these experiences either in school or getting into school, motivational or not, self-motivating or external. But we're talking about a path, that marathon, that is just hard, like period. It doesn't matter what you look like, right? This is just not an easy path. And a lot of students get deterred from it for very valid reasons. I think I went into school as a pre-med undergrad, everybody was pre-med, right? By the end of like the first semester, everybody dropped out, right? Like we this is just how it happens. And, you know, thank goodness, because they probably shouldn't be doctors in the first place, right? So what has that transition been like, right? And maybe let's even go back that earlier. What was it like to transition from high school to college and then college to health profession school? Just, I mean, those are two huge jumps, but can anybody kind of summarize it a little bit? Because I think a lot of our students don't have a picture of that yet. I mean, when you were in high school, you didn't know what this is that you're doing now at all, right? How would you describe that? Louis.
I can kind of jump in on this because in high school, you know, I don't think anyone knows what they truly want to do. So coming from a pretty family that's very health-based, my mom is a doctor. I have a lot of doctors in the family, so it was kind of like expected of me to go into the health field. And I started off as pre-med, just like all other 1,000 students, all of my friends were. But I remember, you know, a friend of mine that he was in college already. And then he told me, oh, once you start, you know, you're pre-med, you have to take all these chemistries, right? So I was like, yeah, I'm not the best at chemistry. I don't think it's, but, you know, I wanted to, you know, continue. I like the health field. So
future pharmacist.
Yeah. Exactly. So long story short, yeah, that transition from high school, being a decent student, a good student with good grades, you know, going into college, starting that first, you know, chemistry, it was just, yeah, it was, I liked it. I enjoyed it, but it was the first challenge. Then continuing on trying to, you know, have good grades in college, then the transition from college to graduate school, it was just mind shattering for me. My motivation, like my first year, my first semester was very bad. Like I did not know how to study for a graduate program. It's very different of how you study in high school, how you study in college. And yes, so all graduate programs are extremely hard. They require a lot of discipline. And I didn't know that. I thought that I would be able to get by just how I was doing in college, you know, like just reviewing a few times and I'll be fine. That doesn't work well in any graduate program that you're in. So I think it's just like having being able to prepare yourself mindfully to, you know, going to the next stage where, yeah, it's going to be challenging and it's, you know, it's going to question your will every single second, but you just have to kind of like learn from each experience. And thankfully I'm still here.
We're making it. Michelle, go ahead.
So I grew up in a really diverse town, actually. I grew up in Teaneck, New Jersey. And when I was there, like we grew up with around so many different religions and people of different races, to the point where I didn't really experience anything until I went to college. And that was a huge cultural shock for me, because that's when I was for the first time in a predominantly white space. And it was incredibly overwhelming. And it took a toll on me to the point where I ended up actually transferring out. And I went to a community college, and from there I ended up getting my associate's degree, and I went to Hofstra University. I planned on athletic training, but I ended up going for exercise science, and I had a great time. I feel like college was a bit harder, but I'm somebody who loves to be busy, so I was in college getting my degree, I was also managing a basketball team and tutoring, and I tried to make the most of it, especially because it gave me the opportunity to travel with the basketball team. So I did the best that I could with what I was given. And I definitely picked a way more diverse university going to Hofstra, because I realized that is what works for me. And then as far as going into grad school, that was a whole new ballgame. Naturopathic medicine is hard, especially here in Arizona, because we have the widest scope of practice. So we learn literally everything, because we can do almost anything with this degree. And having to transition and adapt to different professors and adapt to different courses was definitely hard. But thankfully, I built a really good community of students here that assisted me in learning how to adjust with the different classes. They taught me, like, okay, in Gen Med, you need to compare and contrast different conditions, especially ones that are really close together. So being able to see those little things was really important. And from there, I've just learned to humble myself and recognize that at the end of the day, it's not about my ego. If I need help, I need to ask for it, because I've seen a lot of students not pass because they weren't humble enough to ask. Ask for help, rely on your community, and just accept the fact that you're just going to have to adapt to every course, every professor. That's just reality to get to the end of the game.
Love it. Go ahead, Cynthia. Claudia, sorry.
I just want to add to that sometimes what I didn't realize when I was in college is like I was kind of a part-time student during college, and it took me longer to complete my degree, right? But I could work at the same time. In graduate school, it's completely different, and you have to learn how to manage, if you're gonna work, how to manage your hours of work and your hours for study, and then your organizations, because you're gonna be leader of organizations in the schools, and then maybe you're gonna assist some other professors, or maybe you're gonna do some research projects, things like that. That you have to learn how to manage your time, and you really have to learn how to manage all the activities that you're gonna do, because it's just not going to school like you go on undergrad and study for the exams, and that's it. That's all that you have to do. In graduate school comes with a little more responsibilities, and I wish someone have told me that before getting, so I can get prepared for it, right? Because it is harder when you are in your first year, as Louis said, and you're trying to figure it out how you're going to study, and you're trying to figure it out what time I'm going to use to study, and then you have all these other things coming over you. You feel very overwhelmed. And your mental health in graduate school is very important. And my advice to you is like that we're giving you this information now, so be ready for take on challenges, because that's going to make you a better professional, but also it's going to make you grow as a human being.
Well said. Isaiah.
One of the funny things in the transition from, like, I guess, high school to undergrad to dental school is growing up, I didn't necessarily recognize this, but sometimes I'm very, very hard on myself. But then going through undergrad, it's like, okay, you finished a class and the class had the outcome you want, and so you don't address it. And then you just keep having what your definition of success is in that moment. And so you're not really addressing like the means of achieving that. And so I was just going around like having these same expectations of myself, putting myself everywhere. And I was like, okay, it's working. I got into dental school. I was like, well, we're just going to keep going how we've been going. And then at a certain point, I noticed I was getting really, really, really tired. And then I started going to therapy, and then realizing that I'm having biologically and energetically unrealistic expectations and completely unsustainable expectations of myself. And so that was one of the largest struggles. And it's not a matter of if I can have enough hours in the day, it's a matter of if I have enough of myself to be able to give quality to the things that I legitimately care about. And so that was one of the lessons that unfortunately I had to learn all at once. But it's been something that's probably been the most valuable lesson going and matriculating through everything, is to know how much of myself I know I can give at that moment, and then being able to manage what I'm expecting of myself and where is it coming from in the first place. One of the biggest lessons that I've learned for sure.
There's so much self-awareness here that is so critical, right? That maybe you didn't know it at the beginning, but you learned who you are and what you needed and what kind of support you needed, what community you needed, what faith you needed to have in yourself, right? What limitations you had, and you had to learn that along the way. Did you guys ever, I'm going to share, and please, if you guys are comfortable as well, did you ever get though to a breaking point? And I don't want to disclose kind of the mental health side of this, but a breaking point where maybe you got to the point of saying, I can't do this anymore, where you thought about quitting. I did when I got to residency. I got all the way through college, got through medical school, got into residency, and I was like, this is painful. This is not what I want to do. I am miserable. My mental health is definitely at threat right now. And I almost walked out one day. I almost left my residency. Thank goodness I didn't. I absolutely love what I do and what I've been able to do for my patients more than anything. But I reached a breaking point and I figured out a way to kind of pull myself in. Have any of you guys experienced that yet? I hope not. But if you did, I think there's learning there too, right? Or go ahead.
So I wouldn't call it a breaking point. It was more so of starting to become burnt out. We took boards part 1 this past summer in July. So studying for that was very draining. And after we got our results, we started rotations. But we're in rotations now, and we're still taking 7 classes. So I think I kind of got burnt out with my ER rotation because we had 6 exams the same month I had my ER rotation. And I was just all around exhausted, literally always exhausted, trying to figure out when I was going to study, trying to figure out when I was going to eat, how I was going to still attend class, just basically how I was going to manage my health as well as trying to manage someone else's health. So I wouldn't necessarily call it a breaking point, but I was definitely starting to get burnt out. But again, I kind of had to like sit back and reevaluate why I'm here.
There we go. Very good. Yes, you do. You got to find the motivation somewhere, right? Louis, did you have a?
Yeah, so I think I had a pretty close to a breaking point about my second year, and it was during my finals. I think it was my pharmacotherapy last final. So I came out and I thought I completely blew it. I thought I just failed. I did really bad. I broke down. I called my parents. I told them I can't do this anymore. This is just, I don't think I'm capable of being here. I don't think I have the capacity. And it was a breaking point for me where I was ready to quit. If I didn't pass this exam, I was quitting. Thankfully, my family talked me down. They're, the real reason why I stayed and why I'm still here is like, think about why you're there. What made you get to this point? What you want to achieve when you're done, which is the most important thing. Like, what is it that you want to do with your life? And, if quitting, because you're just at that point that you can't do it anymore because you're just so miserable and you think you'll be happy doing something else, then definitely, because your mental health is just way more important than just getting a grade or finishing a career. But I think it's, if you feel like you're just like so stressed out at that moment and you want to quit, just think about what the outcome is going to be. Try to make that decision, whether it's an emotional decision in the moment where you just feel like you can't perform anymore, or you're just don't like where you're being at that moment. So I think for me it was just like thinking about, okay, what do I want to do? Why am I here? And how am I going to keep going? I got to change around how I'm, seeing things moving forward.
Yeah.
Just to add to that, like, I haven't gone through that point, but I have friends that did. Yeah. And it's very important to be there for your friends. And it's very important for whoever goes through this, like, reach out, because you can be surprised how many people are going through the same thing that you're going through. Right. And having friends there, having friends helping you out, even with assignments and things that, like, maybe can easy your life during that moment, and maybe it can help you pass that moment. And I was there for some of my friends, and like, you suffer with them too, and you kind of go down with them too, and you feel like, oh, you are scared for them too. So I think that is something very important. Try to connect with your friends and be open about it, because they can make a huge difference on your future decisions from that point.
Isn't that true? Isn't that true, Crystal?
Yeah, so this kind of is answering several questions that you've asked already, but it's all
Please do.
related. And you know, it's like we're talking about how difficult it is in professional school. And I think in every, like, I remember back in high school thinking like, oh my gosh, this is so hard. And then community college, oh my gosh, this, because I, you know, did all my pre-med requirements, and then, you know, transferring, and then like adjusting to, you know, 4-year university. And then so, and throughout the whole time, and it's kind of already been alluded to, this like imposter syndrome. And, you know, that's been something that I've struggled with for a very long time. And even nowadays, I'll have episodes, but thankfully over the years, I've learned to take a step back and reflect on everything that I have done up until this point, and realize that it's almost as if I find comfort in worrying. And so I have to remind myself that, you know, with every phase, there's going to be challenges. And, you know, but yes, like it's been said, we are definitely capable, and just remembering our why, being compassionate with yourself, being, and then, you know, realizing that, yes, there are going to be some failures along the way. You know, I've had to, in fact, next quarter, I'm going to have to retake cardiology. And that was, you know, it was hard for me to accept, like, gosh, I can't believe, like, you know, I failed this class. But, you know, I know that that's not going to stop me from, you know, achieving my ultimate goal. And yeah, being kind to yourself and remembering your why, definitely.
I love it.
Step by step.
Exactly. Michelle, go ahead.
Yeah, I feel like for me, that was like our quarter 10. Our quarters goes up, we have like 15 quarters. And in my quarter 10, we were taking like 13 classes at the same time, way over 30 credits. Like we had shifts. It was incredibly overwhelming. And I never had a breakdown where I didn't feel like I was capable of getting through the program. It was just more like I was just burnt out. I was just like, I'm over this. I'm tired. I'm exhausted. This is too much. And I ended up calling one of my friends that I made here that's not in the program. And she was just like, let's just go paddleboarding. So we went paddleboarding for the day, and that rest was incredibly important. I think it's important to remember your why, but it's also incredibly important to rest and make sure that we're making time for that, because it's really easy to get overwhelmed in all the things that we're doing and get caught up in all of the program. And the truth is, sometimes it's okay to miss an assignment if it means your mental health, you know? And another thing is that I have to practice what I preach. So I'm somebody who's very into botanical medicine. That's something that's really important to me. So taking the herbs from adaptogens to help cope with stress was really important. And I made sure that I was making my own supplements for myself. I don't recommend everybody to do that if you're not in the field, but
leave it to the professionals.
Yeah, I'm not saying anyone else do that, but that's what worked for me personally. And I'm taking adaptogens to help manage my stress, and that's definitely been helpful, but also making sure that I make time for rest was super important.
You guys are dropping some real lessons. I appreciate this. Crystal, can I go back to you? Because you mentioned something that I want to make sure our audience knows about, and would love to hear any other thoughts. Imposter syndrome. What is that?
Yeah, this idea that you do not have what it takes. And we've been talking about this here in this panel. And a lot of that could be because, you know, we are of communities of color, and we are, for the most part, being in predominantly white spaces. And so it's difficult it's very easy to fall into this mentality of like, oh yeah, I can't do it. Like there's no way. And feeling like you're always having to put up a front, like, and act very, you know, go above and beyond. In fact, I'm sure that imposter syndrome is tied closely related to like burnout, because we feel like we have to kind of be overachievers to be at the same level of our other classmates. And so it's a very common experience. And one that I've realized again, you know, I've realized that there's going to be moments at every stage where I'm going to feel that way. And yeah, I think it's already been mentioned about, like, you know, creating a community and realizing that this isn't, you know, normalizing the experience and feeling validated in your experience.
Well said. Well said. Go ahead, Claudia.
And just to add to that, also comes the part that when you achieve something, you don't believe you're capable of doing that. You are like, this is not my place, I shouldn't be here, and this was by chance. You start making excuses for yourself and saying, this was just by chance, like, I don't know how I got to this point, and I don't deserve to be here. There are other people that deserve this more than me, right? And that's part of the imposter syndrome too. Thinking of yourself like you shouldn't be there, or you don't, and when you actually did it because of the qualities that you have and the effort that you have put to doing all that work.
Yeah, that's a real thing. And I hate to say it, guys, but even I don't feel it. I know I'm where I belong, but I have a lot of colleagues who are still feeling it later in their career. So it is something that I completely agree with you, Crystal, that we need to normalize and that we need to talk about so that we can build those communities, so that we can support ourselves. Because again, this is a hard road and you need that support, but you guys have definitely shared a lot of advice on how to overcome this, as well as the many other challenges. I want to ask one set of questions actually that I have found to be particularly important. And I'm not saying this isn't important to other communities, but I know it is particularly important to ours as minorities. How has your path been influenced, good or bad, by your family, by your parents? I know a great number of us turn towards our families, sometimes support our families on this road. Sometimes our families are even questioning, why did you choose this? Sometimes they're kind of like hovering over you in the like, anybody willing to share kind of their path when it comes to their family? Go ahead, Cynthia.
Yeah, it took me a while to get through undergrad, like a long time. And my dad was like, why is it taking so long? Why don't you just go take the MCAT right now and go just apply and just do it? And I'm like, well, I can't. There's lots of steps to take, and I can't just take the MCAT and just do it. And I need to have all these ducks in a row before I can do these things. So I definitely felt lots of pressure from my parents to be perfect, to succeed, to get there quickly and in a timely. And I did not do any of those things. I took a long time. I was slow, and it took me a long time to get that foundational science base before I could move on. So I did definitely feel that from my parents.
I think I saw Claudia, then Crystal.
In my case, my mom is a doctor too, but she's a doctor in Cuba, and my father is an engineer. So I think I set myself a goal, like I have to go to graduate school because both of my parents went to graduate school. You know, they have these high degrees. I have to get there somehow. And I think I pushed myself to get to where I am today because of that, because I was doing it more because I have to be at their level. Not because they imposed it on me. It was more like, oh, if my mom is a doctor, I have to get there somehow. And she was the one that one day told me, like, you don't have to do anything because we did it. That was our lives, that were our decisions. You just have to go to what you really want to do. And it took me a long time to realize that I'm doing this for myself, not for them. So my advice is that try to do something for yourself. Don't put yourself in a career because of your parents wanted a career. My first thought was going to med school. And after working in a hospital, I almost got depressed because I went through a lot of things that I didn't want it to go. And I realized being a doctor is not a physician is not my path, right? But I was doing that because my mom was a doctor too. And then sometimes the life is gonna put you where you have to be, but don't push yourself because your parents achieve something and you want to achieve the same thing. Try to do it for yourself and try to do what you really are passionate about.
Well said. Crystal.
Yeah, so I'm actually the first person in my family to go to college. And so my parents had no idea what the steps were. They just always kind of trusted that I was, oh, Crystal always figures it out. She's gonna make it. And so, but with that also came some pressure of like, oh gosh, they really do believe in me. Like I really have to stick true to that and show them and make them proud. And so, yeah, the pressure kind of came from me, not really from anyone else. But I will say I was, like many of you, pre-med, and I was shooting for the conventional medical route. And it wasn't until summer going into my senior year that I had done so many job shadowing, so many internships, so many different experiences that made me realize maybe this wasn't the field for me, but I still wanted to, be in the helping profession. I took some time. I worked at a counseling center, and during this time, it kind of just dawned on me that like, how come I had never considered alternative holistic route, especially because my mother, she raised me on teas and herbal medicine and like just the whole philosophy. And she was my biggest inspiration for choosing naturopathic medicine. She's no longer here. She passed away during COVID, but she is my, she's my inspiration. She's my, gonna dedicate my future practice to her. And so, even though she didn't, get higher than like a 4th grade education, she is one of the big reasons why I am where I am. And so, yeah.
Oh, Crystal, so sorry for your loss, and thank you for sharing that. All right. Final question, because I know we're coming to the top of the hour, and I thank you, students, so much for spending your evening with us. I would love to end on a happy note, because I feel like I've been bringing it down. Sorry for the kind of negativity, but we needed to get some real information out. And so I appreciate everybody sharing and giving your advice. But what I'd love to hear is some additional last piece of advice, but not necessarily one that maybe you experienced, but one that maybe a mentor of yours or a teacher shared with you. I think it is critical in all of our fields to have that role model, to have that mentor, and hopefully all of you have had a positive experience in really motivating you along. But what's the best piece of advice that someone gave you along your path? What can we share that someone shared with you? Let's go with Azaria and then Isaiah.
So we've been talking a lot about, remembering why you're here and also remembering that your mental health is important. But I think one of the things my mentor shared with me that has probably stuck with me is you're only a student once. So this is the time to learn all you can. This is the time to make the mistakes, to ask the questions, because once you graduate from professional school or once you graduate from residency, you're on your own. And if you make a mistake, that mistake is on you. So although, you might get tired or you might get burnt out, take advantage of it because you're only a student for a limited amount of time.
Well said. I wish I was a student again. Isaiah, go ahead.
One of the things it's kind of like a mantra for me now. It's like, it's okay to pull yourself away from something. And so that's something that I was really, really engaged with. I guess the first 2 years I was in meetings all the time for a bunch of stuff that wasn't related to dentistry. And so specifically with like a lot of the responsibilities that come with that, you want to be able to put all of yourself into all of it, especially because they're things that are particularly passionate about. But one of the greatest things he was saying that you don't necessarily have to be taking notes and understand every single thing that comes out of every single meeting. You can take more of a passive invite. Michelle was talking about it a little bit earlier about it's okay to miss an assignment if it's advantageous for your mental health, and it's that kind of thing. I don't have to be 150% in every single meeting to be able to gain what I need to do what I want. want to do. And so taking those steps back to take care of myself in those instances and identifying when I need those, and it's okay to take a step back, is one of the things that I think has been one of the greatest pieces of wisdom to my journey so far.
One of the advices that I received from my mentor actually in the school is like, it is impossible to know it all. It is okay not to know. It is okay to make mistakes. It is okay. You learn actually more from your mistakes than from what you get right. So I think in graduate school, it is a high expectation of you to know a lot, but sometimes we put the pressure on ourselves like, oh, I was supposed to know that now, but we are not supposed to know everything. And it is okay. It is just okay to accept that, hey, I don't have that information. I will have it in the future. I can just look for it. And it is important to know how to use the resources that you have to get to that answer, but you're not supposed to know it all. That's the most important part.
Mm-hmm. That's the hard part, right? Michelle, go ahead.
I think one of the only reasons why I ended up in grad school is because I was listening to a podcast where someone talked about having the audacity to just apply. And if it wasn't for that, I probably wouldn't be here. It was just about having that audacity to even just apply, because that's the only difference between you and somebody else. So I think that's important. And then also just having as much fun as you can while you're doing what you're doing, because like this isn't the end all. You know, I mean, I love naturopathic medicine. I didn't choose it. It genuinely chose me, because I had no plans on being a doctor. But I always said I wanted to have as much fun as possible while being in this program. And I've been able to do that. And I'm really grateful that I have been, even though it's a lot of work. You still have to make time for you and for joy and building community in and outside of the program, because you have to keep grounded in the fact that like, this isn't everything.
Crystal.
Fourth year student said this to us when we were incoming students, and he said, don't sweat the small stuff. And I always remember this quote because I think a lot of us in this profession, we tend to be like type A and just like everything has to be perfect. And definitely that was the case with me. And so I always repeat that to myself whenever there's something that like, oh, I missed some points here, or, you know, in the grand scheme of things, it's not going to matter. And so, yeah, that's my last few words of advice.
Cynthia.
Something that someone said to me, my mentor, he said, like, you don't have to be putting 100% in every single thing. Because for medical school, there's people doing 10 billion hours of everything and lots of stuff. Anyways, he was like, what you need, like, you need to prioritize what you want to do, but you can have a foot in everything. Like, you can be part of this club and you can be, you know, leading this club and you could be doing all these things, like, but you don't have to spend all of your energy. You like learn how to like divide up your energies and like spend time here and spend time here and spend time here. Like, yeah, it's your time. So just put it to where what you want to do, and you can do more than you think.
Louis, go ahead, wrap us up.
I guess the best advice I can give you, not that someone specifically gave to me, but like I've experienced so far, is to don't be afraid to fail and try new things. It's just once you start any new school you're gonna experience is gonna be a new experience. So don't be afraid to, you know, try something that scares you, because you're gonna gain more experiences, more valuable experience from that on. Especially in college is the time to, you know, try new things, try anything. Just if you think you want to go into the health field, you know, start taking those hard chemistry classes, or so yeah, any experience, anything that you want to do, just trying new things is always going to lead to something, learning more about yourself and learning more about what you actually want to do in life.
Love it. Love it. Well, students, thank you so much for this amazing amount of advice over this last hour. I really do appreciate your time, and I know our audience learned an awful lot. I'd like to thank Health Professions Week for hosting us. I think we just heard about naturopathic medicine, podiatry, dentistry, osteopathic medicine, pharmacy. This is amazing. This is a future is bright. That's all I have to say. The future of healthcare is bright because of these students, and hopefully more will be following along all of you. So I'd like to thank everybody again. Again, my name is Dr. Cameron Matthews, and for Health Professions Week, we really, really are excited that so many students are joining us, and that you hopefully will take advantage of all of the different events that we had. And with that, we're signing off. Thank you so much.